Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Corner Post. Sorry for the delay in the podcast. There was the international break, which I tend not to cover, and then last Friday I ended up working about 13 hours straight for my job outside of media. So I didn't get the chance to cover the Premier League and was feeling a bit tired, so I didn't want to put anything up on the Saturday quite yet. But I'm back, so yeah, sorry for the wait, and we'll have to... I'll be sure to get another one out next week, definitely. With the international break, I'll cover some of the big highlights. But just some admin work before I get straight into it. You can follow us on Facebook at 2ballblog. We're closing in on 100 likes, so any support on there would be great. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Sebastian_Quinn. Tweet me any questions you might have or anything like that. And I'll put the link to the blog in the YouTube description. And I'm looking at improving the SoundCloud. I'm looking to go up into a premium subscription for SoundCloud so I can keep uploading and whatnot to there. So jumping straight into the games, it was a big weekend of Premier League football just gone, starting with Crystal Palace winning 2-0 at home to West Brom. It was a very slow game to start with this one. It was the early game, Sydney time, at 9:45. So Crystal Palace at home at Selhurst Park. Going back and forth quite a bit. Both teams did have their chances, but it was a very slow game. During the first half, you had Saido Barrinho had a few good chances, but you could tell he was very lackluster and just no energy overall, which is disappointing to see following the goal he scored 2 weeks ago against Watford. You hope to see him recover from the slump. You know, obviously he wanted to move to Spurs and had that move blocked out by the management at West Brom, and you know, obviously he's not in a happy mood, doesn't want to be there, and I don't blame him. You know, if he's a very capable striker that should be playing for a bigger team, but obviously West Brom want to maximise the amount of money they can get for him to get as much as they can back. So looking at the goals, Yannick Bolasie scoring the first goal in the 68th minute with a header at the back post. Very sloppy goal, and you have to feel for Myhill, the West Brom goalkeeper, who's been very good this year. I think he was 5th in our total percentage of shots saved. So, an unlucky goal to concede, very sloppy. So I think West Brom want to tidy up their defence, despite losing Johnny Evans early in the game. You could tell that West Brom were there. They would have been happy with a nil or draw under Pulis. I think reading somewhere that West Brom's had the most clean sheets in 2015, which doesn't surprise me, since Pulis has started the job at least, So you could tell from the very start that they were keen just to slow the match down as much as possible and do their best just to not concede goals. But I think once Crystal Palace did get that breakthrough in the 68th minute, you could tell they were very free to move and definitely wanted to push on and get that second goal. So a few shouts for penalties, especially for West Brom in the first half, but it ended up being Crystal Palace in the 89th minute who would get the penalty. Johan Cabaye, who was great for Crystal Palace. He's been probably one of the better signings for the season, stepping up and converting the penalty. So that was his third goal so far this season. So that win moves Crystal Palace into 4th, and the West Brom loss has them in 16th, only 4 points above relegation. But I think West Brom should be able to turn around. We'll look at who they're playing in the coming weeks after I finish last week's wrap-up. But I think West Brom should be a team that'll finish about mid-table, but they'll pull themselves together anyway. Moving on to Aston Villa 0, Stoke City 1. Marko Arnautovic scoring in the 55th minute to give Stoke the away win at Villa Park. Of course, Aston Villa still sitting in the drop zone. And Stoke finally... getting a win on the board. They were struggling for the last few weeks, a few draws here and there, and losing to Arsenal 2 weeks back at the Emirates. But yeah, that win moves them just above Bournemouth into, I think that's about 14th. If they pick up another win, it'll catapult them right into mid-table. So not too much in between in the middle. Not too many points between the teams in the middle. So a win here or a loss there could see either team step right up into the top 6 even. So finally Stoke scoring. I didn't get to see this game. It was late. Sorry, it was at midnight Australian time. I was just absolutely wrecked. So I think I watched one of the other games. I ended up watching Man City Newcastle, but I'd like to see Stoke move on and keep playing well. But that being said, they've been incredibly inconsistent. Especially considering the team that they're having. Listening to the Men in Blazers podcast this week, you can you can see that they the way everyone, or the way the Men in Blazers at least see it, is that Stoke's no longer this big physical team that used to run you off the park and push you off the ball. Now it's full of these smaller, very technical European players, which isn't quite as intimidating as the bigger guys. I mean, I remember when Arsenal went to the Britannia last season, ended up being that 4-3 game. Well, Boyan got a double. They were still being dominated by the likes of Charlie Adam, which is embarrassing to say the least. But now, they do have Ibrahim Afellay coming through. They do have Xherdan Shaqiri, so it's just adapting to that new style of play under the management of Mark Hughes. So moving on to the next game, Bournemouth 1-1 with Watford. The opening goal from Glenn Murray in the 28th minute, but the big storyline from this would have to be, I think, it was 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, but Callum Wilson tearing his ACL, so that'll see him, not hopefully, but unfortunately, he might miss the rest of the season. Normally an ACL is about a 6 to 9 month layoff, so unfortunately with him missing, they've got to rely on the likes of Matt Ritchie and Glenn Murray up top. But by the look of it, I think Bournemouth should be staying up at this rate. They're playing very well, very entertaining style of football. For those who do watch it, did get to see the highlights in this one. But Watford, I think it was Venezuelan signing, if I'm not mistaken, Igalo. I think that's 3 goals in 3 games for him, if not more. So that's got to be one of the better signings of the season, especially for them. They're going to need as much goal scoring as they can get, as many goals as they can put away. So, if they've got any chance of staying up, which they're not too bad, about mid-table at the moment, then they're going to have to. Igalo's going to have to keep on scoring for them. Moving on to the game that I did watch, Manchester City 6, Newcastle 1. Alexander Mitrovic in the 18th minute, scoring the opening goal, and as soon as that went in, I'm sure a lot of City fans had horrible nightmare memories of White Hart Lane coming back to them, the 4-1 loss to Tottenham 2 weeks ago, probably haunting their dreams. So as soon as that goal went in, you could tell Newcastle were on the front foot. They had 2 or 3 sitters that they really should have been putting away to finish off the game. It could have easily been 2 or 3-0 for them. So very lucky on Manchester City to survive the 1-0, and they hit back straight away. Kun Aguero, the absolute freak of a striker, scoring 5 goals in 20 minutes. Absolutely ridiculous. So it was a 42nd minute well finished goal, followed by 49th, and then 50th minute, almost not even enough time to get back into my seat. I went to get a drink and they scored again. I had to watch the replay, and they got the ball straight off the kickoff, and Aguero just lobbed the ball past Tim Krul. So some astounding goals, some well taken finishes, but I think the best goal of the lot would have to go to Kevin De Bruyne, who was an absolute peach of a finish, crossed in by who was playing there right. I would have to say Sanya. Let me double check real quick. It was Pablo Zabaleta, making his return for Sanya. Crossing the ball in, and then De Bruyne, almost a standing scissor kick, lobbed it over Krul from the right side of the box into the top left. It was outstanding finish, and while Manchester City really didn't need him for the season, he's been a great acquisition for them. Scoring the lone goal last week against Tottenham, and then one of the 6 this week against Newcastle. So. One of the talking points for City, I think they've conceded so far 17 goals so far this season. Of course the 4 against the 4 goals against Tottenham last week, and then now the 1 goal here. For a team that is supposed to have one of the better defensive sides, they're leaking goals a bit too regularly, in my opinion. Mangala's been playing better than he was last season, but last season he was fairly abysmal, so it's not saying too much. And Nicholas Otamendi, the player they brought in, he's been playing very well, but you can see that without company, his leadership and defensive prowess, they're a different team. So look for company to come back into the fold, and just have to see. You'll see the difference almost straight away in the defensive performance and just how vocal he is on the pitch. Moving on to Norwich 1, Leicester City 2. Jamie Vardy, I think he's got 8 goals in his last 9 Premier League games now, getting the win away at Carrow Road against the Canaries. Opening penalty for him in the 28th minute secured that statistic for him, and then Jeffrey Schlupp, their left back, of all players to score, making it 2-0 before Mokani, didn't recognise his name, scoring the lone goal for Norwich. So, not having watched these games, all I can really comment on is the form of Leicester, who have been playing very well despite the 5-2 loss last time round against Arsenal. They started the season very well against some relatively weak opposition, to be honest, but playing very very fast pace and very up and down style of football. So you could see that against the game against Arsenal 2 weeks ago. They were going back and forth. Arsenal would score, they'd come right back at us, and even though they didn't get they only got the 2 goals out of the 7. They were constantly pressing, and Czech had to come to the rescue of Arsenal on more than a few occasions. Moving on to the surprise of the round, Sunderland 2, West Ham 2. Sunderland up 2-0 early through Stephen Fletcher in the 10th minute, and then new signing Jermaine Lenz in the 22nd, putting Sunderland up 2-0, completely shocking me, before Arsenal loanee Carl Jenkinson scoring in the 46th minute, and then Dimitri Payet, who's been instrumental for West Ham this season, scoring in the 60th to tie it at 2-2. Now, one of the big points of this game is Jermaine Lenz, the Dutch international who was signed early this season, being sent off with a second yellow, not a straight red, for another foul in the game. So he scored that second goal, put them up 2-0, and it looked like maybe this could be the game that turns Sunderland's season around. So that wasn't to be. He got himself sent off the field, and that just about ended it. As soon as he got sent off, it was about 5 minutes later. Not even. It was the 56th minute and sent off, and then goal in the 59th. So literally 3 minutes later, Dimitri Payet putting West Ham back on the board. So I think with that, the big news is Dick Advocaat. I think he got the sack. I'll have to double check that one, but will not blame Sunderland management for removing him from leading the team. I mean, the way they've been performing, you can only ask so much of them, but when it's not working like that, then obviously someone has to go, and bringing in the signings that they did this season, there's no excuse for Sunderland not to be performing. So just doing a quick Google search, looks like Big Sam Allardyce will be stepping in as Sunderland manager within the next 48 hours. Sorry, that's from the Express UK. But the Guardian's reporting that Nigel Pearson may be a backup for them. So Pearson, of course, leading Leicester City to the comeback, the late season revival of last season to escape the drop zone. Moving on to Chelsea 1, Southampton 3. This gives me great pleasure to speak about this game. Willian in the 10th minute, whipping in an amazing free kick. I got to say, very well done. And then from there, Chelsea just fell apart strangely. So in the 43rd minute, Stephen Davies scoring, and then Sadio Mane in the 60th minute, still being targeted by Manchester United, of course, putting them up 2-1. And then the Italian leading the line, Graziano Pella, scoring the 72nd minute to finish them off. So Chelsea very clearly struggling. Mourinho and Koeman both managers having claims to penalties, but Mourinho more controversially. I'm pretty sure he got fined for this, if I'm not mistaken. He was saying that the referees are scared to give penalties. So fairly sure he got fined for that one. But it's just a lot of excuses for Mourinho for him to stay in the job. And while Chelsea did release a statement saying that they've got full faith in Mourinho and his ability, Chelsea can't keep this up. I mean, they're sitting in 15th place at the moment, so near the drop zone. There's all the jokes about Chelsea being relegated, no chance of top 6. And I mean, you look at it now. There's 10 points between Chelsea with 8 and Manchester City sitting at the top on 18. So that is a long climb. Manchester City, while they will drop games, and I'm sure Chelsea will, win a game here and there somewhere, that is a long climb back. I mean, it's just, Manchester City, with the amount of depth that they have, you can't see them dropping so many points for Chelsea to get back right in. And even then, you've got Arsenal and Manchester United sitting on 16 points, and then Crystal Palace and Leicester sitting on 15. So even then, you'd have to be very optimistic as a Chelsea fan to think that you can win the title this season after starting so poorly. I mean, Arsenal, of course, about 2 years ago, starting in the same position, very slow, but not quite this badly. Arsenal ended up coming back to be on top of the table for about 6 months, a bit too much, about 3 months or so. So I think Chelsea, I can't see them obviously being relegated. They're too good of a team to have that happen to them. But with the current form, it does look like they're going to end up sitting mid-table and possibly missing out on Europe, which is not good because the English Premier League is currently struggling to maintain that 4th Champions League spot. I can't remember the exact name for it, but it's essentially an efficiency rating that rates each league and how many spots they deserve in Europe. So it goes La Liga, then Bundesliga, then the Premier League, and then Serie A, who only get 3 spots for the Premier League, unlike the Prem, which has the 4. So if they do slip up on the Italians, then there could be another spot gone, which means a lot of money being left on the table by those teams. So moving on to the Merseyside derby, a very entertaining game actually to watch. It was Everton 1, Liverpool 1. Danny Ings becoming, I think, another one of the 6 players to score in the Merseyside derby debut, pushing off Phil Jagielka pushing Phil Jagielka in the back to score a header in the back post, which is absolutely poorly defended. And Jagielka really should be getting there, but Romelu Lukaku 5 minutes later putting the ball in the back of the net off a deflected shot from, I think it was McCarthy taking that one, so don't quote me on it. He took the shot, came off both defenders, hit Skirtle and fell conveniently to Lukaku, who blasted the ball past Simon Mignolet, who had an outstanding game in goal, I must say. There was 2 free kicks from Everton that he tipped over the bar, and Stevie Naismith header at point-blank range, which he tipped over. It was absolutely phenomenal save from the Belgian keeper. But this game, very feisty. It started off quite slow, but great game to watch. You can see the passion of both teams who are right in it. There was 2 or 3 fights. Emre Can taking on Ross Barkley. Lukaku and Sako going at it at the end of the game, and Sako downright ferocious, looking into his eyes, looking to the devil. So the big news, however, coming from this game, or following the game rather, would be the firing of Brendan Rodgers, showing great character in the loss, somewhat breaking news about, 12 hours old now. But Jurgen Klopp signing officially a 3-year deal with Liverpool to come on and take over the squad. So very optimistic Liverpool fans, hoping for Klopp to turn the team around. And the one concern that I do have with them is that they do have such a good team on paper. You see Mignolet making those saves. Mamadou Sakho is a French international. Emre Can's a great young player. Skirtle's a Nazi. Lucas Leiva, while he's still old, is a half-decent defensive mid. Nathaniel Klein, of course, coming across from Southampton. Alberto Moreno doing the same thing. Milner, fairly average midfielder, but he does the job. Sturridge, of course, one of the better strikers. Coutinho being one of the better centre attacking mids of the game. I think Manchester City actually reportedly are looking to bid 50 million on him this upcoming season. And then Danny Ings, there's no reason for really no reason for Liverpool to be doing so poorly. So now that the Brodge is gone, Klopp coming in, he said he wants to tweak it a little bit, tweak the team and make a few signings, but you just can't. You got to hope for the best with them. They're sitting right in mid-table at the moment, just below Swansea. So you just can't see Liverpool making a decent title challenge at least. But you'd hope with Klopp coming in that he would turn the team around, at least in their performances. Because this game, the first before Danny Ings scored in the 41st minute, it was all one-way traffic. It was Everton going very hard at them, having so many chances, and really, if it wasn't for Mignolet, any lesser keeper, and it would have been 2-3-0 very early on. So very big props to Mignolet making some outstanding saves, but Liverpool just has to be playing a lot better. A lot of their passes just going literally straight to the opposition. More than enough passes going straight out. There was a few times just Coutinho passing the ball and Moreno overrunning it, or Coutinho just putting it behind him, and it's just these little mistakes that completely cut the momentum of the team going. So it was just a very lazy performance from Liverpool, and you could tell that the board of directors for the Reds were not happy with the side. So essentially, reading a few tweets, it was a win-win situation for the fans. If they win, they beat Everton. If they lose, then Brendan Rodgers is fired. So, optimistic times for Merseyside, the red half of Merseyside at least. Moving on to an outstanding game from Arsenal, surprisingly, after the midweek loss to Olympiacos. 3-0 over Manchester United at the Emirates Stadium. Alexis Sanchez scoring early on in the 6th minute after a delicious flick at the near post against David De Gea after some great ball movement from Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey. And then literally a minute later, Ozil latching onto a pass from Theo Walcott, calmly placing the ball into the bottom left corner of the net. So he's been just outstanding. He was outstanding in this game for Arsenal, just controlling the play, moving the ball left and right, and just essentially doing what he wants. This is what happens when you start both Michael Carrick and Bastian Schweinsteiger. Even though Schweinsteiger was playing in a higher role, you would tell that he's still a very old man and lacking the fitness of a younger player. Trouble is, Michael Carrick still has the Michael Carrick effect, where he gets the ball, stands perfectly still, doesn't move, and passes the ball backwards. So Manchester United really should be looking to get Schneiderlin back into the frame. Not too sure why he didn't play. I think maybe United wanted to go for a much slower pace, starting Martial up front with Rooney in the middle as well, looking to slow the play down. But Arsenal came out full head of steam to try and win the game off the bat, and you could tell that they were the only ones in it in the first 20 minutes. So Sanchez in the 6th minute with a near post flick, Ozil putting the ball away off Theo Walcott, who was outstanding in terms of his defensive work rate, really just coming back, cutting in. There was a few slide tackles in there which actually paid off somehow for them. So an outstanding performance from Theo Walcott. Leading the line for Arsenal, deservedly so, holding on to that striker position. So, of course, Giroud coming on later in the game as a substitute and, not having too much of an impact, but it's, Walcott's position to hold now by the look of it. And then, finally, in the 19th minute, Alexis Sanchez coming through off a great pass from Walcott again, cutting inside on Darmian, I want to say, at right back, and then absolutely just blasting it past De Gea. Gave him no chance. But I think Sanchez loves cutting in on that inside, and it's really strange for defenders to not pick up on that. I think it might just be the basketball coming through, but there's been the amount of time Sanchez cuts in. It's the same as making a player go use his left hand or use his right hand. It's very concerning that defenders can't pick up on that sort of thing. So a very fast-paced 20 minutes for Arsenal, and then after that it slowed right down. Arsenal were more than happy to just absorb the momentum of United and let them take their chances. Petr Cech saving an outstanding chance for Anthony Martial to get on the score sheet. Cech had no idea about it. He went the other way, but his legs caught the shot and pushed it wide. So I think a lot of people are underestimating the value of Czech as a signing. There was a lot of talk about Arsenal. Haven't signed an outfield player. Petr Cech, what's he going to do? He's 33 years old. He's getting on. He's not what he used to be. But it is clear that he's a world-class goalkeeper still. There is no doubt about it. And if Arsenal can still play the way they've been playing, in this game at least, then they should be challenging for the title. I think this has got to be the best season for Arsenal to challenge for the title. Bringing in Czech, the outfield players that they have, Alexis Sanchez playing to the capacity that he can, Walcott putting the ball away, leading the line. So there is no better season for Arsenal to win it this year. So if they don't, I think it's going to have to be back to the drawing board for them. Who else do we sign? What do we need for this to turn around? But expect them to continue this style of play next week. Even if they do get eliminated from the Champions League, then that'll be it'll be better for them if anything. So just quickly touching on that before I have to finish off the pod. There was news coming from Dinamo Zagreb that one of their players tested positive for drug doping. So that could mean that Arsenal get their first win of the season, of the Champions League season at least. For them, and which might revive their campaign. So, I think it might be a backhand compliment. I would prefer Arsenal just get eliminated from the Champions League. We all know Arsenal's going to end up being eliminated in the round of 16 anyway, so I'd rather we just leave now and focus on the Premier League. So, I'll leave that there. Moving on to the last game of the round, Swansea 2, Spurs 2. Andre Ayew opening the scoring in the 16th minute before Christian Eriksen scoring a great free kick. Scoring two great free kicks, but they sandwiched another Harry Kane goal. So that's two goals in 2 games for Harry Kane. Unfortunately, this one was an own goal. It was a great finish at the near post. A great finish at the near post for him, unfortunately into his own net, past Hugo Lloris. So I thought Vorm was starting. Unfortunate for Kane, who was struggling for goals besides the one last week for this season. Last season there was a lot of talk of him signing with Real Madrid, and now there's talk of him being borderline useless. So that 31st minute own goal put Swansea up 2-0, but they couldn't hold on to it, with Christian Eriksen scoring another free kick in the 65th minute to put the Spurs back level with the Swansea. So that game moves Swansea into mid-table, and Spurs just above them, sitting in 9th at the moment, just a point above Southampton, sitting below them on 12 points. So didn't get to see these games. The free kicks from Eriksen, though, he's still got it. Still such a great young player. Who he's been phenomenal for them since they've sold Bale. I've got not much else to say about that. Just hoping that Harry Kane can keep scoring own goals for Tottenham. So going to have to get going. So looking at the games coming up next week, Tottenham and Liverpool starting us off on Saturday night at 10:45. And then at 1 o'clock, all the later games now, Chelsea and Aston Villa at Stamford Bridge, Crystal Palace West Ham at Selhurst Park, Everton United should be a very interesting game for both teams coming off very mediocre performances. Man City Bournemouth should be a walk in the park for the citizens. Southampton and Leicester City should be one of the better games of the round, actually. Moving on to West Bromwich and Sunderland, no hope there. Watford at home to Arsenal, 3:30 Sunday morning. Should be an interesting game to watch. Followed by Newcastle and Norwich City and Swansea at home to Stoke City. So I'll have to leave it there. I am running late for uni, so just going to have to quickly recap. If anyone would like to tweet me, Sebastian_Quinn on Twitter. I'm a lot more vocal now and trying to look at a few positions for media studies, and maybe looking into Channel 9 social media and whatnot. So if you have any questions, tweet me there. Anything about football or basketball, tweet me on there. I'm going to be starting an NBA podcast as well to go along with this once a week once the season does start. So tune in for that. Follow the YouTube account. I think I'll post this on the Facebook page, which is 2Ball Blog, almost at 100 likes. So keep up with that. And finally, thank you for all the support. I know it's been a while between podcasts, but it's good to be back in the driver's seat. So thank you everyone for listening, and have a good day.